Amazing fourth graders, it is Mr. Torbein here for lesson 7.1. Here is your objective today. Your objective is I will understand that to add or subtract fractions, they must refer to parts of the same whole. So how do we add and subtract fractions? Let's say that you have 2/4 and you have 1/4. Well, when we add fractions, we combine them. So as you can see right here, you have 2/4 plus 1/4. And you get 3/4. Do you notice anything about the numerator whenever you are adding fractions? Do you notice anything about the denominator when you are adding fractions? Let's take a look at another example. When you have 1/3 and 1/3, we want to add or combine them. When you combine them, you get 2/3. Hopefully you've noticed by now that you add the numerator, 1 plus 1 is 2, and the denominator stays the same. So let's take a look at a couple of examples where we are subtracting fractions. Let's say you start with 7/10. There are 10 parts total, and 7 of them are shaded. And we want to subtract 3/10. So when we subtract, we're taking away. We're going to cross those out, and we are left with 4/10. 1/10, 2/10, 3/10, and 4/10. Okay, what about whenever we have 5/6 and we want to subtract 3/6? Well, we're going to cross out 3 out of the 6, and we're left with 1/6 and 2/6. Okay, now, before I show you a couple of examples in your math workbook, let's take a look at 1/4 represented here and some fourths represented with the semicircle. Okay, so can we add this fourth and these other 2/4? What do you think? Well, let's take a look at them. They would have to be the same. So as you can see right here, these are not the same. Even though they both represent 1/4 of a whole, they have to be the same, coming from the same whole. So this fourth comes from the circle, and this fourth comes from your square. We cannot add them. All right, my amazing fourth graders, let's take a look at an example on page 387 from your GoMath workbook. The instructions for number 1 read, use the model to write an equation. So taking a look at this first model right here, I have 3 out of 5 total parts shaded. I'm going to be adding 1 out of 5 total parts, and it looks like we have 1, 2, 3, 4 parts that are shaded. When you add or subtract fractions that have a common denominator, you are just going to add the numerator. Let me say that again. When you add or subtract fractions that have a common denominator, they both have the same denominator of 5, all you do is add or subtract the numerator. So 3 plus 1 is 4. As you can see, there are 1, 2, 3, 4 parts shaded here, and the denominator stays the same. Okay, let's take a look at example number 4. So here we have one whole. We have our eighths, and we're going to start with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 eighths. Okay, there's an x through 1, 2, 3, so I'm subtracting or taking away 3 eighths. Do you remember what I just said? Whenever we have fractions with common denominators, what we do? Hopefully you remember that it just goes straight across. So 5 minus 3, that's all I have to worry about, my numerator. Okay, 5 minus 3 in the numerator. 5 minus 3 is 2. And we keep our denominator the same. For this lesson, just go ahead and keep your fraction like this. You do not need to write a fraction in simplest term. Okay, very important. Whenever you add or subtract fractions with the same denominator, that you only do the math operation, either add or subtract in the numerator. Have an amazing Osprey day. Osprey, lead the way.